Welcome back to our executive functioning summer. This week's episode is activities that involve writing and drawing. So I have 5 activities under the writing category and 5 activities under the drawing category. Even if your kiddo is not a strong writer or does not enjoy writing, there are still activities under this category that they can do and that we can help them with as well. So here we go. Writing and drawing activities is our topic for this week. The first one is writing and drawing activities. I put those two together. So I have 5 writing activities and 5 writing activities, 5 drawing activities. The next category is building. This could be Legos, magnetic tiles, Lincoln logs, marble towers, whatever your child or student likes to build with. Working memory. These are games that don't require anything other than us. So these are great examples of things that could be done in the car or waiting in line somewhere. We sometimes do these when we're walking to the playground during our summer camp, or when we're hanging out if there's kids who don't really want to play. So the working memory activities are great things that can be done pretty much anytime you have some time and some space to do them. And board/card games. This is really at the heart of what we do here at Starfish Social Club is board/card games. So I also have 10 activities that you can do that have to do with playing games. Here we go. First category, writing and drawing activities. And let me add something to this when it comes to writing. A lot of people who have executive functioning challenges do not like to write, including me. The only time I ever actually physically write things is the 27 Post-it notes I have all over my desk that serve as my to-do list, and the rare times that I journal. Other than that, everything is electronic. Emails, if I'm taking notes about something, I do it in the app on my phone. I do not write unless I really need to. And the Post-it strategy works really well for me. Other people would say that's not ideal, but I can see everything at once on my desk right now. So if your child or student is one of us who do not enjoy writing, here's how I handle that. I will say to the group or to the pair, however many people there are, I am always willing to write for you. You just have to ask for help if you need it. And then I just leave that there. It lets them know that I will help them, and it puts the ball in their court to ask for help. So I do not provide help to kids, even if I know they need it, unless they ask, because it's very important for me to teach my students how to self-advocate. And there may be a day that they choose to do it themselves and don't want or need my help. I do not want to assume. So I'm always available to help write as long as you ask. And that's it. That's how we do the writing activities. I have put these in order of what I say are the least challenging to the most challenging. Your child or student may disagree with that order. They may think that some of the things at the bottom are easier, some of the things at the top are harder. But from my experience, this is the order that I put them in. When it comes to drawing, our first activity is called Only One. I totally just made up all these names. They don't really mean anything. They just trigger my brain to remember what I'm talking about. So the first drawing activity is Only One. That means You can draw whatever you want to with only one color or only one crayon slash marker slash colored pencil, whatever it is that you're using. Only one. Our next activity is called Not Yet. Draw anything you want to that does not yet exist. Our kids are so creative. And so this one is a really great activity that pulls out that creativity, especially if they love to draw. They've probably already been doing this. They've probably already been drawing things that don't exist. Sometimes they'll choose to create an animal. I have a student who used to make a lot of hybrid animals. Maybe they'll choose to create them in the future. Maybe they'll choose to do something that's more sci-fi. So number 2 is something that does not yet exist. Number 3 is to take the drawings of the students in the group, however many that may be, or it could be you and your child. 2 people make up a group, as we learn at Starfish Social Club, just 2 people. Take the drawings of the people in the group and talk about what they have in common. This one really works on that attention to detail. We tend to be big picture thinkers. That attention to detail can be difficult for us. So this is a great activity. You can actually do this with anything. You can do this with pictures that you're looking at on the internet. You can do this with murals that you see on the wall. You can do it with pictures in a hallway somewhere. What do these have in common? You can do it with animals that you see at the zoo. It's just working on that attention to detail, paying attention to things. Number 4, this is one of my favorite activities. It can be quite challenging. So that's why it's number 4. This is where everybody, the bigger group you have, the kind of more fun it is, but also the more chaotic it can be. So number 4, group photo. Everybody in the group starts with a blank piece of paper and whatever you're using to draw. I personally don't like markers because they're messy. I also don't like crayons for kids who are under about 10. Just for the age appropriateness of it. So at Starfish Social Club, we typically just default to colored pencils, whatever it is that you're using. If this involves a timer, I typically use the one on my phone because it has an auditory alert. If you use a timer on a tablet, it also is visual. So that would be even a step up. So everybody has their paper and their drawing pencil, crayon, whatever you're using, their instrument, and you set the timer. For me, I found 3 to 5 minutes is the good spot. Less than that isn't enough time. More than that is too much time. So we use 3 to 5 minutes. They can draw anything they want to during that time. When the timer goes off, you determine a direction, clockwise, counterclockwise, and everybody passes their paper. Now, everybody has someone else's drawing in front of them. I start the timer again, and this time they are adding on to the drawing they now have that someone else started. Another 3 to 5 minutes on the timer. When the timer goes off, we repeat. We keep passing every 3 to 5 minutes and adding on to what everybody else has drawn. In my experience, the biggest challenge my students have had with this is not having other people draw on their drawing. It has not been drawing on other people's drawings. It has been stopping when the timer goes off. That's what I have noticed has been the biggest struggle when we do this activity is the time management, stopping when the timer goes off. This is number 4. I definitely recommend going through 1 through 3 if your kiddo struggles with cognitive flexibility, which the majority of our kids do, because number 4 is challenging for sure. However, once our groups get the hang of this, they love it so much. Sometimes they'll even turn it into a joke or a game where they'll draw silly things on each other's papers, and they don't really care anymore what other people draw. I do set up this activity so that every student ends with their own drawing for the last 3 to 5 minutes so that they can finish what they started, change anything that they may want to change. We just have a rule that we can't erase anything that someone else has drawn. That's number 4. Number 5. This one is something that would be difficult for pretty much anyone, regardless of whether or not they have any kind of neurodivergent diagnosis. This one entails using simple pictures. They can be things that you find online. We've used it before with just cards that came in a game. Simple pictures. And this is a partner activity. One partner is looking at the picture and hiding it from the other partner. And then they tell the other partner how to draw what they are looking at. Oh my goodness. Our kiddos struggle with attention to detail. They also struggle with being able to communicate their thoughts effectively. I 100% relate to that. I feel that struggle daily, that I have a hard time communicating my thoughts effectively. This one is definitely challenging. It definitely is only really appropriate for kiddos who have some cognitive flexibility because it can be very frustrating. If your child has language difficulties, this may not be the best activity for them. But if your kiddo gets to the point where number 4 is no longer a challenge, I would step up to this one. Just an example of what this may look like in case you can't quite picture it. Let's say that one person is looking at a picture that is a bedroom. They would then tell the other person, where does the bed go? Where is the lamp? Where is the window? Where is the door? And do the best they can to explain to this person how to draw what they are looking at. Moving on to our writing activities. Number 1 is Mad Libs. If you're not familiar with Mad Libs are where there is a sentence, a paragraph, a story, however long you want it to be, but parts of it are blank. And your job is to fill in the blanks, usually without knowing the rest of the words in the story. The blanks are typically assigned a part of speech, a noun, a verb, an adjective, a plural noun, etc. We started doing this with our activity sheets at Starfish Social Club. So Ramiro and I did an example, and I'm only going to read this to you just to show how absolutely funny and fun this can be. Our activity sheets automatically have blanks in them because it's fill in the blanks for the kids. And so I had Ramiro, I didn't tell him which activity sheet it was, and I just had him do Mad Libs. So I would say noun, verb, adjective, and then we just filled it in with what he said. And so this is what we came up with. This is our activity sheet when it comes to having a reputation for being funny. And this is what we came up with when we played the Mad Libs way. When we run, it can make other people think we are excited. The solution is to tell other people what we were thinking about that made us talk. Sitting on things with no frame of reference can be big. The solution is to let the desks know what we are driving so they understand why we are laughing. And our favorite, trees talk to themselves, but when doors do it, it can cause people to feel scratchy. So that's Mad Libs. It's just working on that creativity and that cognitive flexibility that things don't always have to make sense. Those examples don't make sense. Mad Libs is a great activity for our kids that tend to be very rule oriented because it totally breaks the rules. It does not make sense. But almost every time it's funny. You can provide the child or student with a list of common nouns, common verbs, etc. If generating their own would be a challenge, which I would guess it would be for most of our kids. So you can provide them with a list so that it doesn't become a bigger challenge than it's meant to be. Number 2 writing activity is Pictionary. The way that we do this here is we take actual Pictionary cards, but you could use any kind of picture or any visual. And we have our students write the captions. In one of the games that we have, it is kind of like, if you're familiar with the kids version is Apples to Apples, the adult version is Cards Against Humanity. Basically, you're matching things together. There's a game that we have that has a bunch of phrases and a bunch of pictures, and it is played like those two games where everybody plays a phrase to match a picture, and then the judge decides which one they like the best. We use those pictures, but have the students make up their own phrases. This is a great activity for our kids who are more creative. It does not have to be done in writing. It could be done verbally. The challenge with that is if you're playing it in the way that the games are typically played, it would be difficult for the judge to remember what everybody said. That's why we do it in writing. We also do everything in a group. So if it's just you and your kiddo, doing this verbally would be totally fine. You could even do it with things you see in real life. If you're driving and you see something silly or weird or that you wouldn't expect, you can ask your kid, what would you say about that? What sentence would you make up about that? Next up is an activity I call 4 words. This one's pretty simple. It involves writing a paragraph or a story using at least 4 words that rhyme. Some of our kids have a hard time with the concept of rhyming because I've noticed that they get a little confused with what makes a word rhyme. Rhyming is where words end the same. I sometimes notice that kids switch gears and start saying words that begin the same. This one works on attention to detail. It works on working memory, creativity, to be able to come up with a story that uses 4 words that rhyme. One way to do this is to have your student or child choose their 4 words first. Which 4 words do you want to use? Maybe bear, share, fair. I was thinking derriere, care, chair. So maybe they pick their 4 words first. It can be more than 4. They pick their 4 words first and then create their story after that. Or maybe they already have an idea of what they want to write a story about, and they, on the way, incorporate 4 words that rhyme. Next is then what happened. This is taking a well-known story. It can be a fairy tale, it can be a Disney movie, it can be a popular book, just a story that most people know, and making up your own ending. This is another one that can also be verbal. It's fun to do this in a group and do it in writing and have everybody do it for the same story, because then we really get to see everybody's creative side, everybody's different perspective. We really get to see some of your kids will write horror story endings, some of them will write comedy endings, some of them will write happily ever after endings. This is a cool way for kids to exercise their creativity. Also, that cognitive flexibility, being able to do things differently. Add a sentence is very similar to the group photo activity. On this one, everybody starts with a piece of paper and a pencil, and the intention is to write a story 1 sentence at a time. Like in the group photo activity, we are only writing 1 sentence and then we're passing it on. I usually do this to where every student has a certain number of turns with their own story. So maybe it's every student gets to write on their story 4 times. Depending on how many students you have in your group will determine how long your story is. If you have less students, I would do it more times. If you have more students, I would do it less times. We typically have 5 or 6 students in an activity like this. The reason this is number 5 on the list is because it requires a lot of cognitive flexibility. Whatever your story started out to be is definitely not what it's going to be when you get it back several turns later. And can you adapt to that and keep it going? So that's why this one is number 5. It can be very challenging for our kids to get their story back and recognize that's not at all where they were going with it. The same when they get stories that have been passed around. They have to read what's already been written and then keep the storyline going. Sometimes I refer to this as taking a detour. When what you're thinking about is no longer an option, can you take a detour? Can you shift gears? Can you make that mental change and keep going? So a detour, the reason I like that concept is because a detour is intended to still get us where we're going. It just gets us there in a different way. We're not trying to go somewhere else. We're still trying to get to that end result, just recognizing that we need to do it a different way. This activity is a great way to reinforce that concept of taking a detour. You can even write a sentence that tries to get your story back to where you were originally trying to go.